Guru Charana Parmana Keval Bhagavati Sarma Shri Guru Charana
Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Paravidakacharya, also Tada Satashi Shimad, His Divine Grace Abhaya Charanada Bhaktivedanta Goswami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai, Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai, Brahm Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shadwaita Gadadha Shivasri Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Shri Shri Radhakrishna Gopa Gopinath Shyam Kunda Radhakunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai, Vrindavanam Ki Jai, Machuranam Ki Jai, Jagadasami Ki Jai, Yamunamai Ki Jai, Shrimati Tulasi Devi Ki Jai, Sambhaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Gaur Premananda Hari Hari. All glory is the assembled devotees. All glory is the assembled devotees. All glory is the assembled devotees. All glory is to Shri Guru and Gauranga Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pastaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Tinamani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gaurvani Pacharni Nivishesha Srinyavadi Paschacha Deja Tarane Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So, I guess what I say a few words? Oh, you have to welcome me first.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. I would like to welcome you all to tonight's function. Thank you very much for coming. Special welcome to our Guru Maharaj once again. Normally we see Guru Maharaj, Gurudev twice a year. Because of COVID, we did not have any physical association for 2.5 years, and it was very painful. So we are all very excited and overjoyed to have Guru Maharaj with us. The set day is coming tomorrow. I'll be dropping Gurudev back to farm, and then from there I can leave to overseas.
Not overseas, Sydney.
Oh, Sydney. And Sydney, then he goes to his spiritual tour all over the world. So thank you, Gurudev. We are very blessed and very privileged to have you. And thank you all as well.
Right.
Just some housekeeping quickly. The toilets are right at the back. The ladies' toilets in the corridor on the left. And the gents go straight to the back in the gym area. It's again on the left. 2 exits. One is on the right hand side outside and left. And from the main door where you came in from. If anybody needs any water, it's available outside in the dining area, just outside the back door. And if you are having any cold and flu symptoms, I would appreciate if you can stay away from each other and you can wear a mask. The mask is available in the front desk. We also have books, chanting bags, chanting beads and other items available on the as you enter the building, so you are most welcome to take them home. And don't leave without having prasada. So without much delay, I will hand over to Gurudev. Shri Shri Radha Golok Nandan ki Jai, Shri Raj ki Jai, Shri Gaur Nitai ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada ki Jai, His Holiness Bir Krishna Goswami Maharaj ki Jai.
Oh. What an introduction. All right. One more. So, Om Gamai Tivananda Shaganam Shadam Slakaya Chakshur Militam Yena Tasmai Shigurve Namaha. Thank you very much, Dowji. Thank you all for the nice Vaishnava reception. And it's nice to be here after 2.5 years, a long period of time. And anyway, it's just nice to see everybody again. This is like a Vyas Puja. It's a little too much.
So we catch up 2 years. So.
Yeah, 2 years, yeah. It's
2 years,
a
yes,
little over the top, as they say. So, right now we're in the period where we're celebrating Ram Navami, or Ram Navami. which according to the Vaishnava calendar that I have, it appears that's on Monday. But many of you will be celebrating on Sunday. So we'd like to speak a little bit about Lord Ram. Actually, do we have the guitar here? Oh, here it is. Hopefully it's tuned. So first we're going to chant this very nice song. There's only a few words, and I think most of you know the words. One word is Hanuman. And the other words are Raghupati, Raghuraj, Rampati, Pavana, Sita Ram, Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram, Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram. And also Sita Ram, Sita Ram, Sita Ram, Sita Ram, Sita Ram. And then also Hare Krishna. Okay? I don't know cartels, but drum is alright. Hanuman, no Hanuman. Hanuman, no Hanuman. Hanuman, Hanuman. Hanuman, no Hanuman.
Sita
Satashi Shimad, His Divine Grace, Abhaya Charananda Bhaktivedanta Goswami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrind Ki Jai. Acharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Pranse Go Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Dvaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopakanath Sayam Kunda Radhakunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Vrindavanam Ki Jai, Mathuram Ki Jai, Jagannathaswami Ki Jai, Yamunamaya Ki Jai, Srimati Tulasi Devi Ki Jai, Srimati Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Gaur Premananda, Hari Hari Bol. All glorious the assembled devotees, all glorious the assembled devotees, all glorious the assembled devotees. All glorious to Shri Guru Gauranga, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Maham Vishnu Padaya, Krishna Vastaya. Gauravani Pacharya Shesha Shanivadi Pasyat Desh Nanta Shah Galanjana Shlakaya Chakshud Vidikam Yena Tasmai Shri Maha. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master, His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, who kindly opened my eyes with a torchlight of knowledge while I was blinded in the darkness of ignorance. So, because we're coming up to Ram Navami, we'd like to speak a little bit about some of the pastimes surrounding the Ramayana. And of course the devotees wanted me to speak about Sugriva and Bali's, but I think it's more appropriate to talk about some of these things some of the pastimes that occurred before the Ramayana was spoken, especially in regard to Valmiki Muni. Oh, thank you. So I'll be speaking from the Valmiki Ramayana. For those of you who don't know, the original Ramayana is the Valmiki Ramayana, which is written in Sanskrit. It's a very beautiful work, 500 cantos, quite larger than Srimad Bhagavatam. It's actually the world's longest epic poem. And of course, the Mahabharata is quite large too, but the Ramayana is all written in poetry. And it's pretty much the same meter, and I'll explain why it's all written in the same meter. There's an interesting pastime in that regard. But let's start with the author of the Ramayana, who's known as Valmiki, and who previously was known as Ratnagara. Actually, there's many different names that people have for him, but the name of the Valmiki Ramayana is Ratnagara. And even though he was born in a Brahmin family, by that, I think there's too much of an echo here. You turn down the volume or something. Yeah. I can speak closer, but there was feedback. So even though he was born in a Brahmin family, he took up what we call the koiture. That's a big word for all of you. He became a Gunda. You don't know what a Gunda is?
Good boy.
Yeah, Gunda. And he had a very interesting way of making his living. He made his living by robbing and killing people who passed by on the forest path. And so that's pretty bad karma, isn't it? When you kill people, you steal from them, and we all know that if you do such a thing, the same thing will come back to you in the future. That's the action and reaction, and the law of action and reaction and karma. So he didn't realize it or think about it. So one day he was doing his business. He went to work, 9 to 5. Or did different shifts. 9 p.m. to 5 in the morning. So, in the Valmiki Ramayana describes that the Sapta Rishis were coming by. The Sapta Rishis are the 7 great sages like Vashishta, etc., Agastya. And he tried to steal from them, and little did he know that the Rishis don't usually carry money. They just have credit cards, so. I'm just joking, they didn't have pockets. So, but he said, stop, give me your money and I'm going to kill you. And they said to him, preaching a little philosophy, because a rishi is naturally abhaya sattva samshuddhi jnana yoga avastati. A rishi is naturally free from fear. One is full of fear because one is identifying with the body that one has, the material body, which is extremely fragile. So the rishis didn't care, oh, kill us, don't kill us, it doesn't matter. That's real detachment. But they were concerned for him. That's really interesting. Like if someone comes and tries to rob you, points a gun, I'm from America. Guns, you know. I know here it wouldn't happen. Here someone would just take a knife or something. So he takes the gun and he says, I'm going to kill you. Give me your money. You say, okay, money, please don't kill me, please don't kill me. And you wouldn't care about the person. You hate the person. Generally, when someone tries to do something to us like that, we hate the person. We're vengeful towards the person. We don't care about the person. But great devotees, like Haridas Thakur, when he was whipped at 22 marketplaces, he was always praying for the welfare of the people who were whipping him. Even in the Christian religion, we have Jesus Christ, who was on the cross, and he is praying for the forgiveness for the people who put him on the cross. He says, forgive them, Lord, they do not know what they are doing. Know not what they are doing. And so these Sapta Rishis were thinking, how can we save this great thief? We want to save him. They weren't concerned with themselves. And they said to the thief, we're going to teach you a little Bhagavad Gita now. He said, we're going to teach you about the law of karma. That means for every action there is an equal and opposite reaction. If you hurt someone, you kill someone, you take their money, you get the same thing back. Just like the word for meat is what in Sanskrit? Anyone know? Mamsa. That means eating me. For example, there are junctions that if one wants to eat meat, of course I'm not suggesting this, that once a month, on the full moon, you go to a forest and you cut the throat of the goat and you say, Mamsa Kadati. That means you're going to eat me. Pretty discouraging, isn't it? It's like you go to the supermarket to buy some murgi, and you look at the chicken and you say, there's me, my future birth, in Aldi's supermarket. So, very discouraging. So anyway, so they explained that to him, and he said, I know about the law of karma, I was born in a pretty good family, but my children and my wife, they need to be supported. My wife has very high taste. She likes a lot of saris, jewelry, and everything. And the Sapta Rishis thought for a second, how can we convince this poor guy? And they said to him, actually, do you think that your wife and children would accept part of your karma? Because, they're getting the result, they're getting all the goodies. And he said, yes, they love me very much. They have so much love. Of course, what he didn't understand is they love what they got from him. They didn't love him. Most relationships are like that. I scratch your back, you scratch my back. And when the other person doesn't do what they're supposed to do for you, or they get old and ugly, you get rid of them. It's better we don't get into too much, right? You do your worship. So he said, yes, they will accept everything because they love me. So they said, go back and ask him. So he goes back and says to his wife, Priya. And she says, yes, Swami. Will you accept some of the karma? And someone else is, oh, don't let him talk. You turn off that microphone or something. So don't let it, so we accept some of the karma. She says, no, you're supposed to work for me, not me for you. And I need some new saris. And so then he gets a little disappointed, so he goes to, I'm going to make up make the story a little more modern so you can understand it, so please forgive me. But the essence of the story is the same. So then he goes to his daughter, and he says, my dear daughter, Putri, would you take some of my karma? She says, no, I want a new iPhone. Of course I made that up. And he goes to his son, and the son says the same thing. And he gets very disappointed. What happened to all the love? It was just a business exchange like that. Business exchange. So love should never be a business exchange. Just like Prahlad Maharaj, after Lord Nrsingadev had saved him from Hiranyakashipu, Lord Nrsingadev asked him, do you want anything? Anything you want, I'll give you. Can you imagine if God came to you and said, anything you want, I'll give you? What would you ask for? A new car? An airplane, a new car, youth. I mean, there's that interesting story. One time, Narada Muni asked Krishna, I want to have a face that no one will forget. and Krishna gave him a monkey face. So you got to be careful what you ask Krishna for, because he may give it to you, and it may not come in exactly the same way that you want it. So he goes back to the Sapta Rishis, very, very disappointed with the loving exchanges he's supposed to be having. And he says, what can I do? And they say you should chant the names of Ram. And he says, that's not possible. I'm too impious. I have no taste. Like the Bhagavatam states, Nivrittati Tarshara Vigimana Bhavoshila Shoshra Vino Vidama Kalmutma Shloka Gunanavada those who are actually killers of animals do not have a taste for hearing and chanting, especially for the Bhagavatam. So he had no taste. He said, I can't do that. Give me a mantra that's really attractive to me. And they thought for a second, and they said, well, can you chant Mara? You all know the story. And he said, that's great. Mara means death. Exactly what I like. Punk music, or whatever type of music they have nowadays. And he started chanting it, Mara, 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 and he became Ram, 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 Ram. And he became so immersed, had such a ruchi, a taste for chanting the Lord's holy names. He didn't notice that an anthill was growing around him. Pretty amazing. That's why he's called Valmiki, in fact. And so later on, the Saptarishis come back and they see the Zantil is chanting Ram Ram, Ram Nam, Ram Nam Sache. So the Zantil is chanting and they bless him. And so he's extremely blessed by chanting the name of Lord Ram. In fact, Namachintamani Krishna's Chaitanya Rasa Vigra Purna Shuddha Nityamukto Viratvam Namanamino. We understand the name of Ram Krishna, Namamakari Vahuda Dijasarvashatish, is non-different than the personality to whom it refers to, which is God, in his various aspects. Actually, Ram and Krishna are the same person. This is very interesting. You should all understand this. That Ram, Krishna, Varaha, Nrsimha, all the same person. The Brahma Samhita states Advaita, Achyuta, Nādir, Ananta Rupa Madhya Purana Purusham Navayoganamcha. There's one God. And he appears differently in different circumstances. Just like all of us, we have different aspects of our personality that we reveal in different circumstances. If some of you may work, you go to work, you have some aspect, you dress differently, you come to the temple, you dress differently, you don't go to work in your dhoti. I hope not. You may even have to put water tilak on in the morning instead of regular tilak. And sometimes you may have to take your neck beads off so nobody notices that you're Hare Krishna. So you look differently, you act differently, you speak differently, according to the various circumstances. I mean, like one time I was going to a country, it wasn't Australia, it was somewhere in South America, in the Caribbean, where they didn't allow devotees to come in. So I had to take my neck beads and hang them real low. I bought my tilak, wear a little cap, because they couldn't see my sikh. At that time I was younger, so I had a big sikh. And so I go through the immigration and they look, are you a Hare Krishna? I said, what's that? I didn't lie. He didn't want them to catch me in lying, so I just said, what's that? I was asking, what's a Hare Krishna? And they said, okay, you can go in the country. Some countries are like that, actually. Very suspicious that he might cause a revolution in the country. So we have different ways that we look according to the circumstance, but we're the same person. You're the same person who's at home with your family, the same person who's at work with your workmates. But the difference is that Krishna can do all those things simultaneously in unlimited circumstances. We can only be in one place, at one time, one circumstance, that's it. That's it. I mean, sometimes yogis, they have these television expansions, like Shoguri Muni. Shoguri Muni, he married 50 wives, that's a lot. But it was like, they all of his expansions looked exactly the same. Like televisions, like you go into a store that sells televisions, and it's all showing the same show. You ever seen that? So that's the yogi expansions. So each and every wife had to put up with him speaking to the other wives. There's Priya 1. No, I'm Priya 2. So, but Krishna, Ram, Nrsimha, same person. I'm not going to say it because Krishna's not an it. He's the same person. And also we find that with Krishna's Shaktis. The Radharani is the Adi Shakti of the Supreme Lord, the original potency of the Lord. And she expands as all the Lakshmis, for example, as Sita. And the other, of course, Lakshmi Narayan and so on like that. So, it's a very important point to understand. So when he was chanting Ram, worshiping Ram, he was also worshiping Krishna. So we are Ram Bhaktas, Krishna Bhaktas, Nrsimha Bhaktas, Kurma Bhaktas. There's as many expansions or incarnations of the Lord or avatars that there are species of life. That's pretty interesting, 8,400,000 species of life. So there's incarnations in the bug species. If you ever see a bug with a peacock feather, watch out. Maybe an incarnation. Prabhupada said that. Each and every species, Krishna incarnates in each and every species of life to give those entities some association. So he was chanting Ram, but that's not different than Krishna. So anyway, by chanting, he was able to contact Ram and actually perceive Ram's pastimes. So one day, he was by the river saying his Sandhya prayers. Sandhya means like morning, noon, evening prayers. He was saying his Sandhya prayers, and he saw a hunter kill a bird, like a crane, one of these big birds, crane. And there was a female crane and a male crane, and he killed them when they're in the process of mating. And he got so angry that he cursed the hunter, that you shall never enjoy any of the upper worlds, you always suffer life after life. But his curse was in the form of a prayer. It had a certain poem, it had a certain meter. Those of you who study poetry know that poems have a certain meter. Da 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 da, like that. I think that I shall never see a poem as beautiful as a tree. That's meter. Of course, nowadays you've got these new poems, new poets, who write in free verse, not even verse, they just like throw out words and you can't even understand what they're saying. When I was at the university, we studied this one poet, E. Cummings. Anyone's heard of him? No. Anyway, so, but traditionally, Sanskrit and poetry had to be in clearly defined meters. And things had to rhyme too. So he didn't know why he cursed this entity, or this hunter, in that meter, and then later on Lord Brahma appeared to him and said, that's the meter, and Lord Brahma and also Narada Muni, and said, that's the meter that you have to compose the Ramayana in, the story of Lord Ram. And the Ramayana was revealed to him, the whole story was revealed to him in his heart. So later on, he taught it to Lava and Kush, of course, the sons of Ram and Sita, and they were able to give it to everyone else. Of course, Valmiki didn't write the Ramayana, he spoke it. Because in those days, people were so intelligent that if they heard something one time, that's it. They memorize it. Shrutidhara, it's called. So he was like that. So it was spoken and passed down to the succession, and we have the original Ramayana today, and it's all written in the same poetic meter. And for those of you who can understand and speak, or at least recite Sanskrit, it's very, very beautiful to do that. There's books out of the Ramayana right now, with translation, with transliteration. One is from the Gita Press in South India. Prabhupada very much appreciated the work of the Gita Press. All right, so that's basically how the Ramayana came to be spoken. So let's start with the beginning. I don't know how much through or how far through the Ramayana I'm going to get tonight, but we'll be here for the next week. So, once upon a time, there was a king named Dasarath. Now, the story actually starts far before that. One of Dasarath's ancestors, Anaranya. Anaranya was actually killed by Ravan, and he had cursed Ravan that Ravan, you'll die by one of my descendants, being killed by one of my descendants. Ravan had a whole bunch of curses. He was cursed by Vedavati, who he tried to abduct. He was cursed by Nandi, when she was a bull. He was cursed by Nalakuvara. He was basically cursed by so many living entities. To be killed because of a monkey, be killed because of a woman. I mean, so many curses he had. So anyway, then you have Dasarath. And Dasarath was a very powerful personality. He's called Dasarath because he could fight in 10 directions or with 10 chariots at one time. Dasarath, and of course, Ravan is called Dasagriva because he has 10 necks, which means 10 heads. Because you got to put something on top of the neck. You can't just have a neck. Griva means neck. So Dasarath was married to 3 ladies. Kaushalya, Kaikeyi, Sumitra. And he really wanted to have a kid. And the reason he wanted to have a kid is not because he wanted to play with a little kid. Because a king needs to have a descendant. People like to have descendants for various reasons. One, if you're a king, you need someone to take over the family business, being a king. But the main reason is you need someone to do pinda. Because the son is called Putra. And Putra means someone who saves you from hell. Because if you don't have a son, what am I going to do about this? Anyway, if you don't have a son, I have plenty of disciples who may be taking me there. Anyways, because I have to take their reactions. Anyways, instead of saving me from there. So he wanted to have a son like anything. And he married these 3 wives. And Kaikeyi was the youngest because he liked her best, because she was the youngest and prettiest. The others had gotten a little old by that time. And so he actually had a daughter. He's waiting all this time, finally gets a daughter. And the daughter is great. But he gave the daughter away to this other king named Romapad Maharaj. We have a sannyasi in our movement called Romapad Maharaj, but it's not the same person. He's a good friend of mine. So Romapad actually means hairy feet Maharaj. It's true. Romapad, anyway, hairy feet. Every name has some significance if you analyze the Sanskrit words. So Romapad had Dasarath's daughter, whose name was Shanti. Shanti means peaceful. So Dasarath was not Shanti, because he had no son. He was just really worried about the whole thing. What am I going to do? And then he thought, let me perform the Ashwamedha sacrifice. But then Sumantra, his chief minister, told him that it was informed by the 4 Kumaras to him previously that he was supposed to perform a Putra Kameshti sacrifice. There's a whole sacrifice you perform that you can get a son or a daughter. I don't do those sacrifices. You have to ask him over there. He's a real Brahmin. He'll give you his card later on. So, actually there's that story in the Mahabharata where Yagyas, Upayagya, performed that sacrifice to get Draupadi. Draupadi came out of the sacrifice. It's an interesting story. Had nothing to do with mine. But anyway, it's interesting. He was performing the sacrifice and he asked for Draupadi's wife to come forward. It's time for her, to drink the kheer or something like that. And she said, I'm just getting decorated. And the priest was so angry that they had to wait, Indian Standard Time. So he was so angry he had to wait, he threw the offering down and said, the son will come without the lady. And so Drushtadumna was born and Draupadi came later. So, getting back to the story. So, Dasarath was told by Sumantra that you have to perform this Putra Kameshti ceremony. But the problem with the ceremony, I guess you can't perform it, because it has to be performed by someone who's never seen a woman your whole life. You just see your wife. And I think your wife is a lady. You're not that modern. So anyway, so where are you going to find someone who's never seen a lady? Because when you're born, you got a mother. Most of us. Now, of course, they have test tube babies. My mother, the test tube. Isn't it? Can you imagine? Here's a picture of my mother. Pretty interesting modern science. So, but it turns out that there is this rishi who has never seen a lady in his whole life. His name is Rishi Shringa. And this Rishi Shringa, at that particular point, was in Romapad's kingdom. That's interesting. So how did he get to Romapad's kingdom if he never saw a woman before? How did he get him there? And that's also a very interesting story. This Rishi Shringa, before he was born. Okay, let's talk about Rishi Shringa's father, Vibhantaka. Vibhantaka, he was a staunch brahmachari. Never wanted to get married. And when you get these really staunch people performing austerities, the demigods get very worried because, they're thinking that so-and-so is performing an austerity to go to the heavenly planets to take over their position. They're not thinking the person wants to go back to Godhead because they're not interested in going back. Generally, the demigods, they're Sakama devotees, generally. There's exceptions. Yamaraj is definitely an exception to that. Sakama devotees means I'm a demigod, I am in charge of the temple. I'm in charge. I'm GBC. I'm a devotee, and Krishna's giving me everything, and Anyaschinta Yogam Tomam Yejana Paripasate Deshan stuff. Yogic Shimavamya. So anyway, I got it made. I'm a devotee. I'm a guru sitting here, enjoying life. Everybody's offering me flower garlands. And this is great. So demigods are something like that. Actually, those are impediments in devotional service, according to Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. The byproducts of what you get as a byproduct of bhakti can be an impediment, can cause anarthas or problems. Like if people say, how nice you are. You're wonderful. Oh, finally someone understood me. So then you become proud and you're no longer humble. Shanada Biswara China, Tharaya Solution. So anyway, so the demigods, they want to interfere with sages' austerities. And in order to interfere with sages' austerities, they have different things that they do. But mostly their trick is to send out some beautiful lady. That's the main trick. Sometimes if someone's performing a horse sacrifice, they steal a horse. Like in the case of Maharaj Prithu. He was doing the horse sacrifice and Indra kept stealing the horses so he could do the horse sacrifice. But in this case, Vibhantaka, he's there in the forest, no horses. So he's meditating, Om, Om, Om. And Indra's getting worried, oh my God, if he chants Om one more time, I'll finish. And so he talks to this Heavenly Society girl, Harsha, and says, you gotta get rid of this sage, Trap him. And so she comes down to the Earth planet, the sage is Om, Om, and she's going, hey, here I am. And it doesn't, he's not really attractive. It's just like, whatever, lady. Go find someone else. But eventually she says, I must have you or else I'm going to commit suicide. And if I commit suicide, you'll be guilty for killing a Brahmin, because I'm a Brahmin. Yeah, that's what she said. Like she threatened her. And you must have a child by you. And then, of course you didn't look like me, but anyway. So he just takes some of his genetic material and throws it at her. And she says, that's not what I wanted. And she leaves the scene, but the genetic material enters into a deer. And the deer gives birth to a little boy. And the boy has little horns on his head. You know, Rishi Shrina. The Rishi with the little horns. I don't know how big they were, but you know, little horns on his head. And the father says, well, I gotta take care of you, you know. And he took care of it, and he was really, really careful. And to make sure his little boy didn't ever meet any lady. In fact, he pretty much got rid of all the female animals out of the forest. It sounds funny, but there's a place in Greece called Mount Athos. Anyone's heard of that before? You've heard about it. At Mount Athos, they don't allow lady animals there either. Ladies are not allowed. It's against the law. No one's heard of that place. It's monks. The monks are there. Mount Athos. So it sounds strange, but it really, in the modern times, you actually have a place like that. Because the monks want to be monks. And I'm not going to make a play on the word monk, monkey. You know, it's too attractive for me to do something like that. So the monks want to remain. Like Prabhupada said, it's better to be single, but if you're going to be a single daddy, then you should get married. So, as Prabhupada said that. Anyway, so he bans all the ladies from the forest. No one's allowed in. And Rishi Sringa's never seen a lady, doesn't even know what a lady looks like. Same time, let's go back to Romapad, King Romapad. And in Romapad's kingdom, there is a drought because there's been some offenses committed against Brahmins, so that means the rain has stopped. So what happens if there's actually offenses or sinful activities? There's either no rain or too much rain, just like, isn't it, you experience here? Too much rain and floods. But that's Buddha, you know. That's a sign when the weather starts really going haywire. And we've seen recently all around the world the weather's going haywire. They had the highest temperature ever in the Antarctica recently. It was recorded. So it's global warming. There's other causes for it too. So it was predicted that the only way he can end the drought was to have Rishi Sringa come to his kingdom. So how is he going to get Rishi Sringa to his kingdom? He thought for a long time. He thought the only way is to lure him there somehow or other. So he calls all the citizens together, and they have a meeting. How can we lure him? Why don't you send a lady there? And so he talks to all the really attractive girls of the kingdom. And they say, you know, if you sponsor us, nobody does anything for free, even that. So if you sponsor us and build us this floating island on the river, because there was a river connecting Romapad's kingdom to where Rishi Sringa and his father Vibhunta were, then I think we can accomplish this. So Romapad, being very concerned, gives them this floating island or pays for it, and they float down to where Rishi Sringa's ashram is, and they're watching with their binoculars, you know, when is the father going away? And so the most attractive lady, she sees that Vibhunta has gone out to do something, take a bath or something, and she goes to the ashram where Rishi Sringa is. And Rishi Sringa sees her, and first of all he says, please accept my obeisances. And she said, he doesn't know it's a lady. And she says, in our kingdom, this is how we offer obeisances, a lingana, you know, embracing. So he embraces her. And naturally, there's hormones and everything like that. So, romancha. There's like this romancha, the hair standing there. He said, this is the best type of obeisance I've ever experienced. It is annoying. And she's Brahma. He thinks she's a brahmachari, looks a little different, There's variety in brahmacharis. And so basically, then she sort of sees in the distance that Vimanta is coming back, so she runs away. And his eyes are just like rolling in his head the whole time. Like that. He's an illusion. He's in love. Doesn't know it. And so his father comes back and he sees his son like intoxicated. And something's going on, so he's watching his son very carefully for the next few days. Something's happening here. And so eventually he goes away to do something. She comes back and says, come to our temple. We have a nice temple on an island. And he comes and then they cut the ropes and the thing floats up downstream. So floats downstream all the way to Roma. And all of a sudden there's rain. Everything's rain. So the father, Bhimantaka, comes back and I don't think he finds a note. It's just like, he's a sage, he knows what's happening. He has Trikalagya, he can actually see past, present, and future. And so he gets really angry. He's going to curse Romapad. This is going to be worse for Romapad than ever before. So he's going to curse Romapad, so he basically runs to Romapad's kingdom. But Romapad, being very intelligent, has told all the citizens whom Vimantaka would encounter that the kingdom actually belongs to Rishi Shringa. So Vimantaka comes and says, who's this kingdom belong to? He says, well, Rishi Shringa. So he can't curse because it's his son's kingdom. And so he's tricked. Romapad was really intelligent. Because otherwise he would have lost everything. So he comes back and finds his son with his wife, because he married Shanti, not one of the girls. So he's married to Shanti, he's very happy. And Vimantaka says, what can I do? Okay, you can stay married until you have a kid. Because he likes to have a grandson anyway. You're the sage in the forest. And then you have to come back with me, Rishi Shringa. And Rishi Shringa said, okay. And so then, Dasratha calls for Romapad. So Romapad comes to Dasratha's kingdom, performs his putra Ganeshti. And as a result, Ram, Lakshman, Shatrughna, and Bharat appear. And his four brothers, and they are inseparable. They love each other, they work with each other, and they follow the Vedic etiquette, where the elder brother is always given the most respect. That's not, I'm telling you that. He's choked by it. His little boy. So, you listen to your group. Not your old brother. So anyway, so that's Ram, Lakshman, Bharat, and Shatrughna. And they grow up together, and then you have the rest of the story of the Ramayana. Do I have more time to tell more stories of the Ramayana? I think we'll end with the Sugriva and Bali's story, because everybody wanted to hear that story. That's really interesting. Because many people are interested in hearing how Bali and Sugriva became so powerful, how they were brothers, everything like that, how they were born. So this story is also told. That once upon a time, as all stories go, there was the sun god, Surya. And the sun god is causing the sun to go around the heavens and everything like that. it's a little more subtle than you may picture. I mean, naturally when we think of a chariot and horses and everything, like we think in a gross context. But it's actually, there's subtle things going on there. So anyway, and he has his chief pilot of the chariot truck, Aruna. You understand? Aruna. Who's driving the chariot, driving the spaceship, chariot, whatever. And there's a problem one time. The chariot doesn't move. Why isn't the chariot moving? It's because of some lady who stopped the chariot from moving. This is a story from the Markandeya Purana. That once upon a time there was a lady and her husband. And her husband basically had leprosy. And her husband wanted to see this other lady. Kind of stupid guy, He wasn't so chaste. But this lady who was the wife, she just wanted to assist her husband. Just making the story very short. I don't want to get into the gory details. So he had leprosy, and they were walking one day when the husband actually realized, here's my wife who really loves me. I'm not interested in any other girl. So it's a good story. So he's on his way back, but he still has leprosy. And so by accident, he touches Markandeya Rishi. And Markandeya Rishi gets so angry. You've touched me. You're going to die before the rising of the sun the next day. And so this guy's wife, she's so chaste and devoted, because the chaste woman is so powerful that she could stop the rising of the sun or the moon. Just like you have that story of Savitri and Satyavan. Everybody knows the story. She was able to defeat Yamaraj. It's very, very dangerous. I mean, I had a practical example of this within ISKCON. One time there was a man who was offending a lady. He just making fun of her because she had a bad back. And I said, Krishna's going to punish you. And he said, nah, let him punish me. Next day the police came and arrested him. Went to jail for 10 days. 10 years, sorry, 10 years. For something, actually, he had an unregistered gun, which they found. Nowadays you don't have to register. Anyway, so it's very dangerous. So she was so powerful, this lady stopped the rising of the sun so her husband would not die. So the sun had a vacation. Just stop there. And because the sun had a vacation, the sun's chariot driver had a vacation. So that's Aruna. He had a vacation. So Surya said to Aruna, you can take a little break now. And so he goes to Indra's palace to see some Bollywood dancing. Because Indra normally has all the apsaras. Right? Anyway, so he wants to see it. But because he's not really one of the top demigods, they don't let him in. He said, no, you can't come in. So he thinks, how can I go in? I really want to see it. So he has powers. So he changes himself to a female form. And he goes into this dancing performance. They let him in. He says, I'm one of the dancers. The gatekeeper or whatever lets him in. I'm one of the dancers. Okay. But Indra sees him. Wow, never seen that girl before. So, in other words, he becomes very interested. And as a result, Bali is born. The son of Indra. Bali is the son of Indra. With Aruna. or Aruni at this particular point. Because you got to add an I instead of an I. So then he changes back to his normal form. Because at that point, when a kid is born in the heavenly planets, that's full grown. No babies crying, playing video games or anything like that. They're all full grown in the heavenly planets. So he goes back, and Surya, he's getting his chariot started. He says, where you been? He says, you don't want to know. So as soon as someone says that, you don't want to know, you want to know. So and he says, tell me. And Aruna says, no. And so he said, I'm the boss here, you gotta listen to me. And so he said, all right, this happened. And as you can probably guess, Surya says, I'd like to see that form. And then as a result, Sugriva was born, the son of the sun god, which is actually really important because that really fits in with the rest of the story, where Hanuman, I'm not going to tell the whole story of Hanuman's appearance, but Hanuman's guru is Surya. And Hanuman is taking instructions from Surya as Surya is moving and Hanuman is flying backwards. So after Hanuman gets instructions from Surya, he asks Surya Dev, what do you want for Guru Dakshin? And Surya Dev says, I want you always to serve Sugriva. And so that's why they're inseparable like that. Sugriva and Hanuman. And of course when Sugriva was kicked out of Kishkinda and went to Mount Rishimukh, he was always with Hanuman protecting him. Hanuman kept him protected from his brother Bali. And then anyway, you all know the story why Bali and Sugriva were enemies. I'm not going to tell that story. So these are some of the stories from the Ramayana. There's many other wonderful side stories, like the story of the fight between Vishwamitra Muni and Vashishta that took place over thousands or millions of years, but there's no time to tell that story. But Ramayana is filled with these side stories, different stories, the story of the advent of the Ganges River. So it's such a wonderful literature, and we have it in its original form, which is amazing. Most of the Puranas, other than the Bhagavad Purana, we don't have them in their original form because they haven't been passed down in disciplic succession. But we do have the Bhagavad Purana, we do have the Bhagavad Gita, we have the Ramayana, of course, in its original form. Mahabharata we don't have in its original form. Mahabharata has been changed dramatically throughout the years. There's something like 80 different versions of Mahabharata. And the main story is always there, but it's changed dramatically. But the Ramayana we have in the original Sanskrit, which is very beautiful. So if you get a chance, you can read the Valmiki Ramayana. So, thank you very much. So, any questions does anybody have about the Ramayana, since we're coming to Ram Navami? Any questions? If not, I'm sure you're all asking, where's Prashant? So I want to thank you all for coming. This is wonderful to see everybody again after such a long period of time. And hopefully there will not be a resurgence of COVID. So we can continue coming, and I look forward to many, many visits. And thank Dalji, wherever he is. Oh, there he is. Who's doing such a nice job, and hopefully in the near future we can have a nice temple here in Brisbane for Sri Sri Bordatai. So we pray for that because we had so many nice people in this area. Okay, thank you. All glory is to His divine grace. Shri Prabhupada ki jai.
Bir Krishna Goswami ki jai.
Hare Krishna, thank you everybody once again for coming. Maharaj will be here for a bit, so if you want to have a quick chat with him, you're most welcome. Otherwise, Prasadam will be set outside, so please make your way to him. Hare Krishna.
Prashan's outside? Okay. How do they get outside? And on there. Okay. Okay. Thank you for your association. Oh, you want me to go? Two hours. Oh, that's not tomorrow, that's on Saturday. I'm not sure. I think it's mainly a private visit or just to go to a lot of place. I'm not sure there's the whole story. I know we're gonna meet with some of the people at 4 o'clock who's going coast. And it's not really a party. Okay, just get, your boss will know. That lady. The strongest Indian lady. Okay.
Can you please tell me what females can be?
Females can be girls. It's all right.
Thank you, brother.
Right, thank you.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet
Hope
you.
to see you again.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
So when are you planning to come next, Maharaj?
Usually around October or something like that.
Okay. Can I
Yeah.
have a picture with you?
Yeah,
Oh, thank
sure.
you.
Let's get a picture. Haribo! Goranga! Goranga Nitai, Prabhupada Puja. Okay,
So nice, Maharaj.
thank you.
Give me a bit more bhakti so that
Yes.
I can also attach more with you.
May you have more bhakti.